Yakubu Ibn Chamba says that in as much as the government wants to score geopolitical points in terms of good governance, it is important that best procurement practices are applied internally in that regard. The government has options in the vaccine-constrained global market, and there has to cut the coat according to its size, according to its cloth, you meant, under the current circumstances. Well, Kweku has been talking about advice, that was given the ministry in the process, and I can't believe that advice was not followed. What best advice can you get beyond that? Deal with manufacturer. If you can't deal with government to government, get to the manufacturers. If you can't get to the manufacturers, deal with those who are connected to the manufacturers. This sheikh, what is this? Where is he coming from? Okay. AJ Nyavo John says, we got AstraZeneca vaccines for free. In attempt to buy some on our own, see all these corrupt issues coming up, all because someone wants to make 10% cut. Dr. Charles Frekubrobe says, the only emergency we are in is how to get second jab, okay, to 60,000 first jabbers, okay. Freights McLean Jones says majority of Ghanaians are not willing to take the vaccine. I was courageous enough to take the first jab with its complications. Now that the second jab, which was slated for me to be taken on the 12th of June, is to be procured through dubious means, how would I trust this vaccine? You got AstraZeneca. That's AstraZeneca you will get, not Sputnik, I think. Collins Little Tete says, it is absurd and with all sincerity for a vaccine to be bought through a middleman and the worst of it all to buy it double the price. Wow, clap for Ghana. Digura Batinas says the same lawmakers and law supervisors are the same people breaking the law they make. We cannot plead for novel COVID-19 vaccines from donors when we are promoting the spread. No reasonable donor will accept your plea. Let's apply the laws equally. Fix the country. Then this one says, I have a radical view. In the light of competition, resources, and the fact that our COVID mortalities are low, I suggest we concentrate on vaccinating health workers and high-risk groups so we save the money for other pressing needs. Dr. York. Wow, that's a suggestion there. Okay, so now let's continue, shall we? And we get to the issue of the bank collapse or the bank cleanup exercise, and why the governor is not happy that we have so far been able to recover just too little. Joining us to help us with that discussion, Dr. Richmond Akwesi Etuahene, banking and corporate governance consultant. Also, Eric Nananipa, that's a very famous name now. He's director, PricewaterhouseCoopers, receiver, 347 microfinance companies and 23 savings and loans companies, and joint receiver, UT Bank Limited and Capital Bank Limited. Of course, you also know that matters have gone to Parliament from UT and Unibank, and the Bank of Ghana, through its lawyers, Benchi Enchel and Ankoma, have issued, a response. They have declined attending to Parliament or assisting them and telling them in the face that what they are seeking to do is to overreach the courts which are dealing with these matters. Gentlemen joining us through Zoom, thank you so very much for making the time to join us.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's listen to Dr. Addison and the things he had to say about this issue.
Recovery of the banking sector and the cleanup. I think you wanted the data, right? The data on how far. I have had a lot of data this morning. I think we should make this available to the press that is here. There's a lot of detailed information on the recovery, 1.7 billion so far recovered. But you're looking at total assets of over 10 billion. So really, we are very far.
25 billion.
25 billion, right. So if we have only been able to recover, just 7% of the work has been done, it's not very encouraging. And part of this problem, again, is what is going on in our courts. Things are not moving as quickly as one would have expected. So I would ask that the data on this cleanup is shared with those of you who are here so you can look at it and do the stories on that.
Right. So if we may begin with Eric Nananipa, thank you very much for your time once again. You are responsible for ensuring practically that we get the monies back. The state has spent 25 billion and now we, the citizens, are being taxed with this burden to pay these monies through the banks. Why is it that you are failing in your job?
Thank you very much, Samson, and greetings to your listeners. I need to make a point absolutely clear to you. As you rightly mentioned, I'm receiver for a couple of these reserve companies. That is the microfinance institutions, savings and loans companies. I'm a joint receiver with our country senior partner, Vish Ashiagbo, on UT and Capital Bank. And then, of course, I'm also associated, being PwC, with Premium Bank and then Heritage Bank. And of course, there's 39 microcredit institutions. These are the receiverships I have visibility over.
Okay.
I think I need to make it very clear to you.
Thank you very much
These
for that.
are the receiverships I have visibility over and for which I can speak to. All right. Very clearly, Bank of Ghana sits at the top, so they have a global view. But for me, regarding the data I have and the accounts I have taken over, if you look at the assets base, the net asset position based on the management accounts of these reserve companies at the date of the revocation of their licenses comes to about 11.6 billion cedis. So I can speak to an asset base of 11.6 billion approximately.
Okay.
All right. And out of that, let me also make it clear that based on the situation assessment exercise we conducted, as well as an assets quality review, we assessed that of the 11.6 billion cedis worth of assets, we should be able to recover close to 5.6 billion. That is based on our assessment of the state of affairs of these companies when we took over. And of course, of the 5.6 billion cedis, we have been able to recover 1.5 billion plus. All right, so I need to set this in context that in terms of realizations, for us it is 1.5 billion. So very well, I mean, Bank of Ghana Governor may mention 1.7 billion overall in terms of recoveries or realizations. But as far as PwC is concerned, that is, my firm is concerned, we have been able to recover about 1.5 billion plus. So that's something I think I need to certain context.
That's still a drop in the ocean.
It is a drop. It is a drop. I mean, it is about 27% of the amount we seek to recover. It is a drop. But we are in the position we find ourselves now because of a couple of issues. One being the court cases, which you did mention. Of course, I think Governor did mention in his speech that we have very big ticket legal cases. 3 of them alone, and we are confident of success ultimately. 3 of them alone are valued at about 1.5 billion cedis. 3 of them alone are valued at about 1.5 billion cedis. Of course, we have many other accounts in court. Okay, so that is one aspect. Second aspect has to do with the strategy we have developed, and that is asset tracing and recovery. We have entered into a collaborative agreement with IOCO, where IOCO is working with us to locate, trace, and recover assets that have been hidden, that resources that have been diverted. And we are very, very confident that given a successful outcome of this exercise, together with a successful outcome of the cases in court, combining them, I think that realizations ultimately will be significantly enhanced. So we take a view based on these considerations, and of course, at this point in time, 27% may not be a very good output, but ultimately, we are very confident that we would make a significant headway.
Often when we have issues generally in the citizenry, it's very easy to blame the politicians, so we blame them, the media. We do that very often. When the Bank of Ghana governor says that, the court is to blame for all of this because of a slow process that is going on, I find that to be a bit cheap and unsustainable for a number of reasons, because I am familiar of a number of the cases. And I'll give you an example in just one of them. In one of them, after the Bank of Ghana, through its agents, sued, one of the defendants filed their processes and sought to include the Bank of Ghana. It took the Bank of Ghana over 6 months to be reacting to the processes and having the process go forward. So the court was not at fault. Eventually, when it was not successful at what it wanted to remove the Bank of Ghana from the process, it filed an appeal. That appeal was filed a year ago. It is only yesterday that the process has in fact been kicked to start, because the Bank of Ghana, which should be interested, went to sleep. And it has actually gone to the High Court to stop the process that is going on. So it has stopped it. And if the appeal would take the next 2-3 years, it means that process has stopped. Why do you blame the court? Is that fair?
No, I'm not blaming the court. I haven't raised any criticism of the court. It would be dangerous for me to do that, given that I am in court as we speak.
Okay, when I said you, I meant the governor. I didn't mean you, Eric Nananifa. I'm sorry.
Well, I do understand that, but let's also get some facts right, Samson. I am receiver, and I am one, and Bank of Ghana is the other, right? So it would be very difficult for me to speak to Bank of Ghana related issues. I am receiver appointed to run with the affairs and conduct the winding up of these companies, and that is what I can speak to.
Okay. Please hold on briefly for me, and then let me bring on Mr. Chiahene. So from where you sit, Dr. Etwahinu, from where you sit, what is the problem? What exactly is the problem?
Thank you very much, Samson. The problem is very simple. Like you heard Nana saying, track and tracing of assets. It takes such an unreasonable period to be able to track and trace the assets. And as you also said earlier, when Bank of Ghana was requested to appear in a case, it took them 6 months. So it's a myriad of problems that has prolonged or protracted this legal issue. And I think, like I listened to the first program, we don't learn from a lot of things that has happened to us. And I believe that we should begin to learn and ensure that speedy actions are taken. I mean, if it was in Nigeria, let me quote Economic Financial Crime Commission in Nigeria. When they were dealing with Mrs. Eburu, it never took 4 years. It never took 4 years. What is it that the Nigerians were able to do to recover and imprison? Why hasn't we been able to do? Is it because we have a different law? Or because the laws are not well explicit to deal with people who have actually caused, maybe I'll call it financial loss of 25 billion? And it's serious. And I think going forward, we must be serious about the way we do things. Other than that, all these things that we are talking about is not going to yield any results, any effective result. 1.5 and 6 billion, and you're talking about 25. Add the two, even if it's recover 6 and add, it's not half of it. It's not half of it. And I believe that we need, as a nation, be very serious about this economic and financial crime issue. Maybe we need to look at our laws. You are lawyers. Maybe what has the Nigerians done over the years, which we haven't done? If we do that, we will be able to improve all these recovery, the asset tracing, lack of recovery, and all these things. Unfortunately, asset tracing have been in the bank for a long time. It also was an issue for us. Fictitious name have been used in asset registration. If you go to look for it, you're not going to get it. Now they are getting the economic something to get involved. Maybe they should have done that earlier to be able to track all these assets, to be able to dispose of it, to reduce the indebtedness, which is about 4% to 4.5% of the GDP. And I believe that we're going forward, we must learn and begin to be more proactive. It is after so many years. Now we're going back to the economic something to go into agency to track for us. We should have done it day one. In Nigeria, it was done by the economic and financial crime, the same period when they decided they would tackle Mrs. Eburu, the oceanic woman who actually did the same mode of business in Ghana that affected us. And within 6 months, they were able to recover it. So my take is that, is it the law, is it the people, or we are people who don't want to do the right thing? Maybe, as a nation, I listened to your earlier program. We've done with Mary, we've done with this, and we're going to do the same thing. Look, I mean, that is all that I can say at the moment.
Right. We on this program, we are focusing on the solutions. And so I like the approach, the way Eric Nanipa begins to approach it and to focus how we want to look at this issue. But Kofi, listening to my two guests so far, who are experts in this field and in their respective fields, what would you say, having also listened to the governor of the Bank of Ghana?
Right. I would say that when this whole thing started, everybody thought, do we have to go on these banks? Do we have to put them up, lose the jobs, create the confusion, and all the things that were attendant? Now, some of us, because of being involved with some of these institutions in the past, knew the depth of the problem. And so we said, let us give the leaders the benefit of the doubt because we believe they know what they're doing. And one of the arguments that were put out was that this is the fastest way out of the problem. People stood to lose their money. If we don't intervene, then there will be chaos. I think that if it is about speed, that argument is totally dead because this has not been resolved quickly. And then there was the argument that, well, the government is bringing in the money, which is why we taxpayers are paying, so that the monies that have been lost or misappropriated by these people, we will give them back to the depositors. I have clients whose monies are still stuck there. And that argument, therefore, has also not been seen to have worked out. Then you have all kinds of questions coming up all the way into Parliament. Clearly, it does not look like from the beginning we had a good plan. And I say a good plan. You may have a plan, but it may not be a good plan. Why? Because the outcomes have shown that this has taken too long, it has cost us too much, and has all of a sudden made it a very, very crucial question that needs to be looked at. That what if we kept the banks and rather gave them this money, so we'll keep the employment, keep the stability, keep things, and let them pay their people? Now, I think that question, if it was not tenable earlier, has become tenable. And I sincerely hope that academics, economists, banking professionals, the Institute of Banking and other people will study this issue thoroughly, from the strategy, the thinking, the processes, the actions that have been taken. Somebody should write a paper. Somebody should make sense of all of this, whether it's good or bad, so we can learn lessons. But back to the point, we have not done a good job with this thing. It's taking too long. People still suffering. And if you ask the average depositor, especially those who haven't gotten their money, they don't think this was a good thing. So I would say that we need, I would want, and I don't think I'm alone, somebody to come and give us a clear roadmap. Mr. Nipa can do a roadmap for the ones that he is responsible for. The Bank of Ghana can do a roadmap for everybody. Maybe somebody in the Ministry of Finance, whoever was in charge of this whole thing, should give us a roadmap and say that in the next 13 months, we'll do this and this and this and this and bring an end to this. Because as we speak, there seems to be no end. Nobody knows when this whole thing is going to be resolved. And honestly, if indeed there was no plan, or the plan wasn't a good plan, then that was quite reckless. Because very many people are involved in this whole thing. Okay, and clearly, like I'm saying, it doesn't seem like it has gone well. We need answers.
If you had that one question for Eric Nana Nipa, what will it be? Beyond the suggestion that they may not have been proactive in securing the assets, because from what he says, it will appear that securing the assets is now being done and is becoming difficult too, which with the benefit of proactive planning, they could have done a lot better with that at the very start.
The question would be, we are told that the government is paying, or taxpayers are paying for this thing. But Mr. Nipa also tells us they are recovering. The general understanding is that government is going to pay, and then we are going to recover and then put it where we took it from. So my one question will be, what is stopping you from resolving all issues concerning clients, customers? And why are you using recovery as a reason for the delay? So the one question is, what is stopping you from resolving all issues concerning clients using the money that the government is providing?
Right. May we please hear the response?
Yes, Samson, I think that, again, I need to come in to clarify. It does appear that there is some misunderstanding on the part of the doctor and to some extent even Kofi. We are in this situation and we are being frustrated, as I can see from all of you, because of the reasons why these institutions went down in the first place. Things were so bad, we did not have records, assets were overstated, things were so bad that if we said we were going to leave them in the state in which they were in, it would have been a worse situation, of course, but subject to further debates and all. I did not say that we are now bringing in IOCO. Right from when I was appointed, actually, IOCO proactively reached out to me and entered into a collaborative arrangement with me to recover assets working with me. And indeed, IOCO has done so much. There have been lots of hidden assets, lots of resources diverted. IOCO has been able to wrestle some of them. They have been able to locate some of them. They have obtained freezing orders for some of them. They have graffitied quite a number of properties which are not reflected in my financial statements. So much has been done, so much is being done. Let's get this absolutely clear. And why we are having to bring in Yoko is because of the extent of stink, and rot in the system. Loss of financial reporting was going on over non-existent assets. We are struggling with the data, paucity of data, even locating customers and borrowers who have taken significant sums of monies. We could not locate them. And therefore, the whole thing, this whole experience of exercise is one very, very difficult one, and is having to come out painfully this way. I can say this on authority because this is something I have been doing for well over 21 years. We did the liquidation of the Bank for Housing and Construction. We went on to do the liquidation of Ghana Airways and others. Never did we ever come across this extent of difficulty and loss. So we are dealing with a very serious situation which has to be dealt with all hands on deck. So it is not a matter of ill preparation or planning. No, it is simply a bad situation which we are tackling head on.
All right. Kofi, so Kofi, that's a very good explanation to the point you raised, right?
I'm just going to ask, are we paying the depositors with government money or with recovered money? That is the crux of the matter. If it is government money like we've been told, then why the delay? I thought we'll pay them and then we'll recover and then put the money back. So are we paying with recoveries or we are paying with government money?
What does that resolve?
Yes, please, Samson, we are paying with government money. What government did was to set up a bailout scheme and to fund the bailout. The government has released to me an amount in excess of 6.5 billion cedis. And this is what I use to pay depositors. And I have paid almost everybody. But we have situations where in validating the account and claims of some of the depositors, we just did not have records. When I was made receiver of, for example, the 347 microfinance institutions, there were 155 of these microfinance institutions which ceased to operate way before the revocation of their licenses. And so many of them do not have records. To this day, we cannot locate these records. So, I mean, it is an act of responsibility that if you submit a claim on a company without records, I would not be able to validate, and therefore, I would not be able to pay. That is one thing. Other reason why some customers have not received their monies is that they submitted their claims very, very late. The 6.5 billion funds that was released to me was based on my assessment of valid claims I had received as at the 4th of July 2020, which actually was a generous break on my part, and of course guided by the Bank of Ghana, because what typically is the situation, and based on the Act 930, is that within 30 days of the company being placed into receivership, within 30 days, you are supposed to have submitted your claims, based on which I would review, validate, and agree these claims, and then admit them. You take the situation of the microfinance institutions. I was appointed on the 31st of May 2019. You take the situation of the savings and loans companies. I was appointed in August 2019. So in giving them a break up to the 4th of July 2020 was a very generous one. people did submit claims. So as at the cut-off date of the 4th of July 2020, the valid claims I had in my possession, which I advised the Bank of Ghana of and also the Ministry of Finance of, was in the region of 6.5 billion cedis. And that is what the Ministry of Finance released funds for me to pay. Post that, there have been claims coming through. Even to this day, I am in receipt of an additional in excess of 1 billion cedis in value claims that have come through post the 4th of July. And therefore, I don't have the money to pay them. I am putting together a request to the Bank of Ghana, to the Ministry of Finance, to consider a supplementary payment. There is also, I did mention those companies without records. In the course of my work, again working with BoG, we have been able to retrieve data, information which is relevant to the validation of claims. So these have come through and they are new developments post the 4th of July. And therefore, we are working towards making a request for supplementary payments, all within the context of the government bailout program. So, Kofi, you are right to the extent that it is recoveries that will be used to pay back governments. So that is what the scheme is about.
All right.
The government finances, and then when I make my recoveries, we use to pay back government. So that is the arrangement.
Before we let you go, so we continue on the other part of the discussion. At this time, what assurance can you give to the governor? Because he's as worried as most Ghanaians that things are slow. The recovery is a bit slow.
Well, the assurance I can give to the public is to have faith in us, because we have a definite plan and we are confident that working with the BoG and going through the legal processes, the due processes and all, we should be able to recover the 5.6 billion cedis that we have anticipated. I, at this point, want to make a plea, particularly to the Lands Commission. We need them to assist us and to support us in terms of searches. When we make searches or we conduct searches to ascertain the ownership status of lands that we believe or properties we believe belong to these resolve companies, we just urge them to work with us and to speed up our request so that very speedily we would be given responses that would help me do my work effectively. That is what I ask.
I have a question from one of our viewers from the UK, and he is asking, with the benefit of hindsight, looking at how much we have pumped into this, process, don't you think that the safest way forward would have been for government to have bought majority shares in those banks, appoint competent private sector players to reform those banks over time, and that way you would have kept jobs, at the same time stability in the banking sector?
Well, it is difficult to say. It's got to be subjected to in-depth analysis, but I'm very confident that the path we have taken, given the circumstances of these institutions, is the right one, because we are dealing with institutions, number one, with poor or non-existent corporate governance practices and procedures. We are dealing with situations where there have been such diversions. We are dealing with situations where the books and records are very faulty, over bloated and all. How can you turn such a situation, putting new wine into old sacks or something? no, I am very confident that we require a proper cleanup, which is what we are doing. I crave your indulgence to exercise patience. I believe that ultimately, when the outcome of the court cases come in, and I believe they'll be positive, as well as the work we are doing, not just with the YOCO, because other law enforcement agencies have joined me now in providing me with intelligence and helping me with enforcement. I believe a combination of all these, as anticipated, will bode well for us ultimately.
Maybe the final question before Kofi Bento says he wants to ask you one more thing before you go would be that you had 6.5 billion valid claims that you worked on, and then you have gotten as much as 1 billion more that has come in post July 4, and more most likely will come in subsequently. How do you explain, if that's a question that you are able to explain, the cost that the government has told the citizens of 25 billion, if this is only how much you have had to spend?
Well, something, as I go back to what I said the first time, I can only speak to what I have control over,
which is the 11.6 billion.
The 6 institutions, or I mean the 6 groups of institutions that I'm receiver or I'm related to.
Okay.
You know, even the 5.6 billion that I'm looking to recover will be subject to will be based on distributions as directed under the Banking Act, all right, which is at 930. It sets out a priority of payments. So the fact that government is coming doesn't necessarily mean that all will go to government. We have other creditors, some of them of superior ranking to government. What this whole bailout process brings out, is that the depositors have assigned their interest and their rights to government. Government has paid them off, and government is now standing in their shoes. It's a subrogation arrangement. So we have other creditors higher up the rank, like GRA and SNET. They are statutory claimants, and they will be paid fully before we come down and consider others in line.
All right.
So it doesn't necessarily mean, I need to correct that all 5.6 billion, when recovered, will go all to government.
All right. Kofi has one small question, I understand, for you. Kofi, quickly.
Yeah, thank you. So, see, even as we speak, I'm getting messages about people who have not received payment. So I want to ask Mr. Nipa, it can be an unending process. Can you please put out some sort of a timetable which says by this time everything will be resolved? And hopefully we can all adjust.
Kofi, but Eric is looking for money from the government. He doesn't have it. Why are you asking him to make that promise?
I know, but he is handling a few things, and he has connections to those who have the money. So can he please, as part of the process, now if he says that there is no timetable, then all of us will take a cue. The point being made is that we need to communicate better to the populace, and people need to plan. So do you have a timetable? Can you please explain, just in a short, your complaints process? Where do people go? People who haven't been paid, like some of my clients and some other people that I know of. So just 2 things.
I'm actually getting some of those messages about people who say their claims have not been paid, even though they've been verified, validated. Yes. Can we get your response?
Yeah. Something. Thank you. I need Kofi to clarify, because sometimes people mix certain things. We have the resolution exercise going on within the confines of Bank of Ghana driven companies. And then we have those for the fund managers, which is Securities and Exchange Commission. So where do his customers sit? It is very important to distinguish it.
Okay, I have customers both in the Bank of Ghana system and customers both under you. So I'm asking you to clarify what you handle. Indeed, if Bank of Ghana were here, I ask them for the same thing. We need a timetable and say this will end by this time. So answer for your people, but hopefully the Bank of Ghana people will also come and answer for themselves.
If again, I may also further explain. Bank of Ghana has appointed me to handle these SDI, that is specialist deposit institutions, which have gone into receivership. I am the one handling. But we have another arena of resolutions, which is driven by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and that relates to fund managers. That has nothing to do with Bank of Ghana. So that is the clarity I want. Are yours related to the specialized deposit institutions or they are with the fund managers or both?
So I have individual clients who have microfinance issues with microfinance companies under you. I represent some fund managers who have issues with SEC. We have been there. So across the spectrum, there are people who have issues. So what I'm saying is that concerning the ones that you deal with, can you give us a timetable? If I get to the others, I'll ask the same thing. Can you say in 48 months, this will be over? And can you speak about your complaints process? Where do we go to lodge a complaint? I have been validated, my money has not reached me, or only part of my money has reached me.
All right, so that'll be the very final question for you, Mr. Nipa.
Thank you so much, Samson. Let me speak to the first one regarding the timelines for completion of this exercise. I will say that substantial completion, and I say substantial because there are moving parts and situations beyond my control, like the legal cases. Until there's complete resolution to these legal matters, we wouldn't say that this whole assignment or exercise is over. But regarding those aspects of the work that I have control over, I am very confident, of course, subject to additional funding being released by the Ministry of Finance. And given what IOCO is doing in terms of asset tracing and retrieval, I am confident that within 18 months to 2 years, I should have substantially completed.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. Now, Dr. Chahine, with the benefit of time, do you think this approach was wrong? And that's a question I'm getting many people asking. For example, the gentleman who sent a message from London suggested that the safest way would have been, if I may go over his question again. He says the safest way forward was for government to buy majority shares in those banks, appoint competent private sector players to reform those banks over time. That way, you would have kept the jobs of the people, and at the same time, there would have been stability in the banking sector. What do you say?
Thank you very much, Samson. I think we are talking about two different countries and various systems. You know, in UK, he was talking about the Lloyds banks and the issue, the financial crisis. It is easy to do what he's saying. In Ghana, the banks, as Mr. Nipa has said, was totally non-existent. Related lending to their cronies has taken up about 80%. One of the banks, 80%. A CEO, a chairman is taking the money for his own purpose. How do you want somebody to put money in a company where somebody has taken 80% of deposit and you want to appoint private sector? It doesn't work. You see, in our system, it doesn't work. So I believe the approach adopted by Bank of Ghana, Finance, and what Mr. Nipa is saying, I think it was the right path. Unfortunately, the environment did not allow us to do the right thing because people took the facilities like they took emergency liquidity support. Instead of supporting it with a bank, they used to buy an asset. They use that money to buy an asset. You can quote me anywhere. Where are you going to get the money from? So I believe what they did was right. Maybe what I will agree with Kojo is that we needed to have maybe a plan to finish this action. But apart from that, if you know the details the fraud system, the detailed mafia in the business. There is no way government can point money in and appoint people. It's not easy in this part of the world. It is easy when you say early they were what there. It is easy to do
the question, Dr. Chiahene, is that the government has spent 25 billion. Could that money not have done what you are saying it couldn't? You shouldn't be doing?
If you do 25 billion and somebody has taken 8 billion for his own personal thing, how are you going to recover when you cannot even trace the asset he has acquired? So if you even point 5 billion, if you point $10 billion in it, with this, the sort of fraud, the sort of system there, it will be very difficult for anybody to turn around because it was non-existent. Credit policy was non-existent. Recovery was non-existent. Credit committee was non-existent. It was headed by just a few people. So even if you appoint the best, Alan Greenspan and those from UK to come and help you, it will never ever work.
Really?
That is my belief.
Okay. All right. Somehow your line too has not been the best for us. What do you think about, very finally, what do you think about Bank of Ghana's response to Parliament?
Thank you very much. I believe I read the response. I thought it was in order because if you look at the BSDI, the section 140, 142, 141, 142 talk about resolution and the mechanism and arbitration. And I did never find anywhere in that resolution that Parliament was part of it. And I was wondering, I checked the Constitution, thinking that maybe I haven't studied very well. But I went back to the BSD Act, the 1982. It says that, if you see it, if you like, I'll quote them for you. If you have any issue with the central bank concerning withdrawal of license, revocation, anything, you refer to what we call the panel adjudicative panel, which will be formed by the Chief Justice. If they come and you're not satisfied, you have every right to go to High Court. So I was a bit puzzled when I heard that the thing has moved into parliamentary area. So when I saw the reply by the lawyers, I thought, they are only quoting the Acts 140, 141, 142, which actually resolve all those issues that the Parliament was talking about.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Richmond Chiahene. He's a banking consultant. Thank you so much. Now, Kofi, what do you say first about the suggestion that, with the benefit of hindsight, there may have been a better approach to this, which would have given us better rewards than this approach, and then Parliament's intervention and the response from the Bank of Ghana through their lawyers, Bentiencho, Lecha, and Ankoma?
Right. So these are very, very important issues, and I think we must be very sober-minded about them. Now, when this process started, there were those issues, and as a think tank, we were observing and we're trying to learn lessons because we thought this is one of the most important events in the financial history of this country. We needed to understand how we got here, how we are going to traverse or go through, and then what we come out with to make us better. So when the questions came as to why don't you just put the money in, save the business, I said, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Now with hindsight, like I said, time was one of the issues that was used, that this is the fastest approach to stabilize the system. That has not been proven to be correct. It's taken far too long. Then getting people their money quickly, making sure people don't lose money. As we speak, some have lost money, some have gotten less. I have a number of clients who haven't gotten anything at all. One of my clients kept searching and he has died. He died last June. Now, so that also hasn't worked out. You have situations where Dr. Dufour and UT and co are complaining about the process. So clearly something has gone wrong with this strategy. It's not worked as intended. I think that hindsight honestly shows that this was not a very time approach. Have not proven that. If it were so, I would say.
Kofi,
now,
your submission.
We need to look
Kofi,
at what Parliament
Kofi,
is doing, and I did.
Hello, Kofi. Kofi, sorry. Kofi, hello. Kofi can't hear me.
Yes.
Right. So
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Your submission was.
I can hear you.
your submission was truncated when you said, with the benefit of hindsight, you think this was not the right approach. You said something which was truncated.
Right. So I'm not sure which one was, but I'm saying that from the beginning we gave benefit of doubt, and we were giving reasons why this was the best approach. Now, in analysis, a post-facto analysis is not a matter of opinion. A priori analysis is opinion. I think it will go this way. But after it has happened, we all know what happened. And what I'm saying is that what happened has not gone along the lines of what we were told. And therefore, the price that was paid in terms of lost businesses and lost jobs and all those things have not been shown to have been a necessary price. So what I'm saying is that clearly we have not benefited from the nuclear approach of blowing up these banks and financial institutions and losing the jobs. And the point I'm making now is that we should therefore learn the lessons. This is one of the most important, events in our financial history as a country. We need to understand how we got here. We need to document properly the processes and learn the lessons, and we need to be clear how we move forward. That being what it is, therefore, I want to urge Parliament to possibly broaden its investigation into this matter. Not because we are trying to catch people, for doing wrong, but because we need to learn from these things. I think nobody should be stopped from speaking up. So the issues that are being brought up by Dr. Dufour and UT and others should be listened to. Let's hear them out. And please, Bank of Ghana and all those other state institutions that have something to say or something to contribute should not put up a resistance. It is necessary for our country to understand these things. Elsewhere, we read about these case studies, etc., and they learn from them, they grow.
Kofi,
in short,
Kofi, the advice from Bank of Ghana's lawyers are premised on the law, plain law, on the Constitution, on the Bank of Ghana Act, and also the Banks and Special Deposit Taking Institutions Act, all of which they say, or they don't say, they quote to us to show, to Parliament, to show that what they are doing is wrong. And that even if there were breaches of human rights, as the petitioners claim, you and I know too well that the place to ventilate your human rights when they are violated will be in the court and not in Parliament. And that what Parliament is doing is sub judice. What do you say to that?
Well, I say that we must always respect the law. And so if Parliament is approaching things in a way that breaches the law, they must be, alerted to that fact. However, there is no law that stops Parliament from holding an inquiry into anything that has happened in this country. And there is no law that makes Bank of Ghana above Parliament. So yes, maybe they are approaching it in a different way. That's why I'm saying broaden it. Let us have the mindset not of catching people or whatever. If that happens, that's fine. But we should have a mindset of learning lessons, because we've had similar situations in the past. We didn't learn lessons and we've repeated them, from Piram down to Men's Gold. And even with this bank, we've lost Bank of Housing and Construction, which started well, and a number of others. Okay, Commercial Bank has gone through a number of crises. It keeps coming back because of the government funding. We need to learn lessons and improve things.
What happens?
So
what happens to
broader view to inquire about what has gone on?
What happens to the pending cases? What happens? What happens to the pending cases in court? If Parliament were to actually go into the investigations, finish now, and order the Bank of Ghana to restore the licenses that have been revoked, what happens to what is going in court?
Well, court processes have a beginning, have an end, and they have a determination. So if the right thing is to restore licenses, so be it. And we need to find a way to do that. Look, we must not be eager to just destroy things. We must be eager to make sure that going forward we are stronger than where we were.
Kofi, I want a clearer answer. I want a clearer answer. I want a clearer answer. There are matters going on. There are matters going on in court. There are matters going on in court. Then the same people and entities involved in the court cases and at arbitration have come to Parliament to ask or direct the Bank of Ghana to restore their licenses. if Parliament makes that order, I'm asking you, where will you place that vis-a-vis what is going on in the court?
I think the point is very simple. Parliament cannot lawfully make that order because the matter is in court, which is why I'm saying, and because we don't have time, I'm not able to explain everything, but I'm saying that Parliament, there's a process. Parliament cannot overstep the courts. Parliament is subject to the Constitution and to that extent the courts. Even if they pass a bad law, it can be struck down by the courts. So these things can be explained. What I'm saying, therefore, is that Parliament should take a route or a role which is properly set within law and do more of inquiry at this point. The courts also, I think, are slow. Not to do an inquiry
to what end? To do an inquiry to what end? What is the end game?
The end game is to understand why we went through this, how we have done it, mistakes that have been made, things that could have been done better, plus a number of other things, so that we have a total picture for posterity of all these issues. And there is clearly a role for Parliament in that sense.
There are people who are standing trial. There are people who are standing criminal trial. Parliament should look into the process and say, you were not wrong, you were not wrong. What happens to what is going on in court? There are people who are in court being asked to refund specific amounts of money. They are in Parliament saying we should not be asked to do all of these things because this is wrong. You are saying Parliament should go on and waste its time?
No, Samson, I'm saying something very clear. Hopefully you will hear me this time. Parliament has no business interfering with court processes. So Parliament should stay away from the matters in court. But Parliament has a business inquiring and understanding what has gone on, and it can do that lawfully without interfering with the court processes. And I'm saying if there's a problem with understanding how that is done, there are enough lawyers in Parliament to advise on that, and that is necessary for this whole country. The court, however, should also be faster in determining these matters, and the delay, I don't blame the courts for. I blame the courts for the posturing of our institutions, like Bank of Ghana and other people, who sometimes, I don't know why they find it so difficult to yield to court processes. However, this matter is more serious than we are taking it. That's why it's taking this long. I think the courts must be minded to set up some special courts to get through this quickly. Like I said, I have a client who went after his money and has died and left it. And we are not sure how to handle it now. So it's real. I can tell you all the stories of people who have, come up and gone. So Parliament has a role. The role does not include interfering with the courts. Parliament is subject to the Constitution and the courts. It must do its job without interfering, and it can do so. I think it must listen to Mr. Mwabing.
Let's listen to Kweku on this.
The courts should also be quick in their work.
Let's listen to Kweku on this. What he's suggesting, is it really possible that Parliament can go on and then the courts can also go on and do what they have to do? And in respect of the delays blamed on the court, I have used one example. Maybe there may not be too many examples about what is going on. And I am hesitant to say much about that because I am involved in that case where the offending, the owners of the bank that were sued, one of them goes to the court and counterclaims against the Bank of Ghana that the Bank of Ghana should be part of the court of process. It should be in court. And they get a favorable judgment in that regard. Bank of Ghana opposes that it shouldn't happen. They should not be made to be part of the court process. So they fight it over a long period. And then the court rules that the Bank of Ghana should be part of it. They come to say, if you say the Bank of Ghana should be part of it, we are appealing. An appeal is filed, nothing is done. They stop the High Court process. It doesn't go on any further. Appeal is filed, and the appeal, it takes 1 year, just yesterday, that the first step towards the appeal getting life has begun. And from the way it looks, it could take the next 2 years to get that done, and the case itself has stopped.
Yeah, your producer is my witness. I actually pleaded with him to excuse me relative to this subject matter because I lack the requisite competence and qualification to interrogate it. But he insisted I should be part of it. And here I am. So I'm at liberty to make one or two comments. See, it's quite interesting that the Speaker of Parliament has constituted a committee to look into the petition submitted by, I think, Dr. Dufour's Unibank, and there was another one, it should be UT Bank, and submit a report to the House. Perhaps the Speaker, in the Speaker's judgment, because he's the sole authority to admit this petition and trigger action. Perhaps in his mind, and I'm just speculating, he thinks it hasn't reached the stage where Parliament may be, going into a territory that it ought not to go in terms of resources.
He has written a full ruling. How many pages was it? I read it overnight.
No, I haven't seen his ruling.
Right.
But because, you see, ordinarily, the precedents have been for Parliament to stay away from cases that are in court. Or if they are debating anything relative to cases in court, you have to make sure that the references or the statements you make are not prejudicial. And it's the Speaker that determines that. So there's been an argument, if you go through the Hansard, that look, we can discuss the matter if it's in court, only that we shouldn't make references or comments that are prejudicial. And that when we make it, then it's for the Speaker to intervene and say, hey, don't go this far. There's a rare debate within parliamentary practice as to whether you leave the issue alone entirely or Parliament can intervene, but make sure that you know your boundaries.
The Speaker's ruling gives you a history.
I wish I had a copy.
A history, I'll share it with you right now. A history over how these things have been done. And they go through Canada, they go through India, they go to the UK, and come to the conclusion that in all these places, it is self-restraint. It's not legal restraint against Parliament.
Yes.
However,
that's exactly
in some places, they have actually made regulations that say, don't get into matters before the court. But even so, the discretion is left to the Speaker to make a determination.
Fantastic.
Yet they realize that the Parliament and the courts must work in a way that give mutual respect.
Something. It summarizes what I was saying, perhaps with different words, in terms of choice of language or words. But that's the point. And if you read the Ghanaian parliamentary history, that debate is still there. It's unresolved in its entirety. Right. And so it comes to the point about the Speaker's discretion, even if the matter is on the floor and is being deliberated on. It depends. The Speaker has to be very careful and guide the MPs in the direction that they should go in order not to prejudice anything that is in court. There are those who say don't touch it at all as long as it's in court. But of course, the question of human rights, if you raise an issue of human rights and seek a determination, as you've indicated to Kofi, we all know where you have to go. Is that not the High Court?
The Constitution is clear.
Yes.
That you go to the High Court.
Yes. So again, you can itemize the issues that are captured in the petition and isolate them and say, look, this cannot be part of parliamentary deliberation and things. But you see, I was just yesterday, while I was running away from this topic because of it, I decided that since I've been forced to come, let me do some searches. We hear banks. I noticed that there are 420 regulated financial institutions that were affected by this. 9 of them were banks, okay? Savings and loans companies, 15. Finance houses, 8. Microfinance institutions, 347. Microcredit companies, 39. Leasing company, 1. Remittance company, 1. Now, you see, you couldn't solve the problem with the same brush relative to all of them. With the banks, my own feeling is that maybe 1, 2, or 3 of those banks could have been put in the package of resolution that Kofi is alluding to. Okay? I'm not sure if I should mention those names, but these are very sentimental things. I was all for Unibank being retained. I was all for Indum's Bank being retained. I was all for UT Bank also being retained. I think they could have been packaged in a different way and dealt with. But all these other ones, look, the problem was such that there was no way you could use the same method. Some of them had even been given capital infusion prior to the dissolutions, and nothing happened. Ituahine's point is key here. The rot was such that quite a lot of them deserved to be dissolved, disbanded, and then a new approach taken. So I disagree with Kofi if he's using the same brush for all those banks, regulated financial institutions. What we have reached is too late to go back to that point. See, were depositors' funds saved or not? If you owe a government, it's better than you owe somebody else. At least there's some hope. It's unfortunate that some have died, as Kofi said, and one has to be sensitive to that particular thing. But if you do a general analysis, look, many depositors were rescued. Indeed, their accounts were rescued. And even if they haven't received it, there is hope relative to the process that we are going through that they will be paid. Now, also, I've checked and I got this message not too long ago in terms of the status of cases in court. I'm told the banking, that is the Capital Bank, Republic versus William Atuasian and 4 others. On the close of the prosecution, the accused persons filed submission of no case. Ruling on submission of no case is to be delivered on 8th July 2021.
That particular court has been very fast with how it goes about it. It does not allow the lawyers to have their way in the way it does its things. It does not allow the state or the lawyers. That's Justice Eric Chebafor's court.
Interesting.
Right.
Then the Unibank, I'm told the first prosecution witness is in the box now.
Those are the criminal matters.
Yes. UT Bank, the first prosecution witness is giving evidence now. Venture Capital, 3 accused persons pled guilty under Section 35 of Act 495 and have been convicted. Is that correct?
So they are paying the money back.
This is, and then there are 3 others whose trial is ongoing. Then, of course, I'm told dockets have been submitted on 8 microfinance cases. Iwoko has been tasked to conduct further investigations. Dockets now submitted.
How many years is it taking? It's not the best, really. But you know, there are the civil cases that is intended to recover money. Yes, that's the most important.
And there are many of them being done. There are many. Look, this whole Crew saga is one of them. Crew was tailored to recover some assets. If the other bank I wished had been, repackaged, was Heritage. That was Heritage, not UT Bank. So to be honest with you, I think the Bank of Ghana overall, the decision they took was commendable and must be supported, with the exception of the 3 banks that I have expressed my own sentimental reservations about. It's not a substitute for law, I agree, but it's sentimental.
Okay. And in the Speaker's ruling, yes, we're taking a quick break. In the Speaker's ruling, which is a 35-page ruling, yes,
interesting.
He said, among other things, that yes, the legislature, and he's quoting from a case, the legislature is the, quote, general inquisitors of the realm, unquote. So that is to say, it is allowed without any limitation. And there is in fact no law that limits Parliament from getting into matters that are said to be sub judice. But he goes on with a whole host of history, very, very, very lucid, and comes to the conclusion that consequently, honorable members, it is my ruling that admitting and laying of the petitions do not contravene the rule of sub judice. So what you were talking about, he was talking about the format.
Yes.
That admitting it does not contravene.
I understand.
2, that a committee of Parliament, which I had ruled earlier to be a committee of 7, be a committee of 9, chaired by the Honorable First Deputy Speaker. The committee is directed to consider the petitions and duly report to the House at the commencement of the 2nd meeting. And then you have the members laid out.
Yeah, but you see, the difficulty is the Bank of Ghana is in court with some people, isn't it?
Some too are in court with Bank of Ghana. And there are also arbitration
and you are
matters.
asking Bank of Ghana to send you responses to some lines of inquiries. What do you think Bank of Ghana will feel like?
Okay.
Would they be comfortable
yeah.
with the idea of they're defending themselves in court or prosecuting some cases in court, quote unquote, and they are supposed to send you answers to Parliament? They'll feel uncomfortable. And I'm not surprised they are citing the Bank of Ghana Act and all those things.
From where I say the Bank of Ghana's reply is the law.
I hear you.
We'll be right back.
Thank you.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, as always,